released on vinyl and vision.
Hey folks, thanks for tuning in to the latest episode of Vinyl and Vision. Here we are with episode 94. 94, holy shit. We are getting close to the 100 episode landmark. Today's very special guest is John Leon. John is the founder and guitarist, songwriter for the band the Royal Arctic Institute. I really enjoyed having John on the show. It actually was a incredibly fun conversation. I think we had a very good time and a few good laughs. Topic of discussion being Game Theory's Lolita Nation. Brand new to me. I knew nothing about this band or this album going into this conversation. Well, I mean, I had time to prepare, obviously, but prior to getting John to agree to do the show, I had no idea what it was. Pretty cool stuff. There's a lot there. There's a lot there to mine and to discuss and to research and so forth. And we did a little bit of talking about this album because, frankly, I like to speak to my guests about what they are doing a lot as well, in addition to their their inspirations and their influences. So, Game Theory and Lolita Nation, very cool. Very cool album. I'm actually very happy to discuss it with him. You might think that that's a strange album. If you know what Game Theory is and that album, Lolita Nation, and you know what the Royal Arctic Institute is and does, you might say, hey, that doesn't make any sense. That's not true. And we discuss it, and you will hear all about it. So John has a new album out, a new EP, I should say, From Coma to Catharsis on Already Dead tapes and records, and they actually have a EP that was released, another EP that was released just a year prior to this one, called From Catnap to Coma. So this is all instrumental music, and I find that very interesting for a number of reasons. But I mean, instrumental music, it's there's something about it, and we really get into it near the end of the episode, so I encourage you to stick around for it, where we really kind of delve into, what is instrumental music and why. So, pretty cool little insight there. These new albums that John had made with the Royal Arctic Institute were produced by James McNew of Tengo, and I encourage you to pick them up. At the end of the episode, we also discuss how these two EPs was not intentional. It was not intended to be released as a full-length album, nor was it written and recorded as with the intention of being released as a full-length record. But the two pieces obviously work together so well and are fairly connected that the plan is to have them released on vinyl near the end of the year. So I encourage you guys to follow them. I will provide links, of course, obviously, to purchase these existing EPs as they are on cassette or digital download, and follow them on social medias, and that way you will be updated as to when that vinyl may be available and when they may be coming to your town. I happen to miss all of the shows that they've just done, so I am sorry about that, John, but I'm sure there will be more. So look out for that. Thank you, folks, for tuning in. All that we ask here is that you please do all the things you do with the internet: like, share, subscribe, comment, rate, review, all of those things. And if you care to help us out in a more financial way, which we desperately need, you can visit our website, psychicstatic.net. And any purchase you make there goes towards funding the show, and we appreciate it. Thank you very much, folks. Enjoy.
Hello.
Hi, John. How are you?
I'm okay. Thank you so much for your patience. I greatly appreciate it, and I do apologize.
No worries. Don't worry about it. I'm happy to be here and happy to have you.
Where would you like to start?
Let's go right to the beginning. So you tell me a bit where you grew up.
Oh, I grew up in Mobile, Alabama, down on the Alabama Gulf Coast.
Oh.
I lived there until I was about, 22, I guess. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. So like that was the majority of your life down there.
Yeah, yeah. So I lived down there, and I moved away with a rock band to Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Oh, that's a good city.
And then from there, I found my way out to San Francisco for a little while. And then from there, I ended up in Austin, Texas for about 15 years before moving to New York City.
Oh. So, and all of
It's
these
been,
moves, all of it was chasing music, chasing the dream?
um, yes, except for Austin, Texas, it was chasing a girl.
Oh, well, it's a good city to end up in for music.
Yeah, I mean, it ended up being quite good for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
the relationship, once I got there, I think the relationship lasted about 4 months. And then the next 15 years was spent playing. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Oh, okay. So growing up in Mobile, Alabama,
Mhm.
what was music like in the house?
When I was a kid, my dad, huge Beatles fan. And so Sergeant Pepper was on repeat.
Hmm.
And when I was little, rumor has it that he would put on Sergeant Pepper, and I would just run in circles around the coffee table the whole time it was playing. And
You're
so,
because you were so excited by it.
oh yeah, I loved it. And then as I started growing up, my father and I would watch Austin City Limits together.
Yeah. So how old are you when you're like running around the table with Sergeant Pepper's?
Oh God, I was like 4 or 5.
Oh, okay, so little
Yeah,
kid, like
little
really.
kid. Oh yeah,
Okay,
like
yeah,
really little.
right.
That was the kind of music that was getting played in the house. And I mean, not just Sergeant Pepper, but like Revolver and Rubber Soul and
A lot of
all
the
of that stuff.
Beatles.
He was all the Beatles, yeah. And then, I guess um I would I would hear stuff on the radio from from that part of like the early 80s. And by that time I was probably about 7 or 8. And we got MTV, and all of a sudden I was just lost to it.
Hmm.
And I loved that band, the Stray Cats. When I
Okay.
was about 8, I decided that I wanted to be Brian Setzer. And so I convinced my parents to get me a guitar and guitar lessons, and that was it. You
Oh
know,
yeah. Okay.
I
So
was,
you've been
I
playing
was
guitar since you were 8.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Huh.
started really young. But my
Okay.
father's a guitarist and a drummer, and my grandfather and my great uncles, they were all musicians during World War II.
Hmm.
So it, kind
Yeah.
of comes naturally in the family. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. And did any of them have any kind of level of like success or like what was their like kind of interest in playing music?
Well, my grandfather and my great uncles, I mean, they worked as a jazz band during that time. I never met them. They all had passed away by the time I came along. But I think they were quite successful on the Gulf Coast playing, you know, VFW halls and
Hmm.
things like that. And my dad, he played um all through high school and college. But after that he got a straight job and played at home a lot.
Hmm.
I think, like, I can remember he when I was a little kid, he would do like weekend wedding gigs and stuff. I can still remember there was one time that my mom took me to see him play. So yeah, but I think by that point it had kind of become a hobby for him because he was raising a family and working a full-time job.
Hmm.
And So yeah, that was the roots of it. And then I started at 8. And by the time I was I guess I played my first show when I was 13.
Wow.
Um, at an all ages place, and I had a punk band because by that time I had really fallen in love with punk rock and
Yeah.
had found my town's 10-watt college radio station. That was,
Yeah.
and this was like 1986, I guess, and they were playing all of the stuff that I kind of fell in love with. And
Yeah. And it was like punk stuff for the most part.
punk, new wave, all like for instance, some of my favorite bands from that time were like the Dead Kennedys and the Damned.
Mm.
But I also loved Psychedelic Furs, Echo and the Bunnymen, all
Okay.
of the sort of post-punk new wave stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the stuff that I got really excited about.
So what was this band like that 13?
Oh, we were horrible.
Well, what
We
were you
were
trying to do though?
really. Oh, we were trying to be. I think that we did a few Dead Kennedys covers. We did a Cramps cover or
Okay.
two.
All right.
I think we did No New Tale to Tell by Love and Rockets. We were
Hmm.
kind of all over the place. We were terrible.
Yeah. But you're
But
13. That's pretty
we
that's pretty advanced, I think,
were
for a
13.
13-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah, we were bitten by the bug, and that was the beginning of it.
Hmm.
And then I went on from that. I was really fortunate in that I ended up getting to play with a lot of musicians who were a lot older than me. Um, I played my first show in a bar when I was 15, um, with guys who were in their early 20s. And that lasted until I left, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
So it was a small music community. Uh, that being said, in the 80s and early 90s, there was a really sort of vibrant music scene down there. Not so much anymore, I don't think, but at that time, it was pretty fun. We had a good time.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I mean, especially, teenage musician. I mean, I can imagine. I mean, I don't know what it was like down there. I mean, in the early 80s, especially for doing like a punk style of music, I can imagine it didn't go over so great, regardless of what your talent was, you know?
It was precarious at times,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, this was the late 80s, early 90s when I was hitting it pretty hard.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, at the time, pre-internet, life down there was, you kind of isolated. Um, and a lot of people had not necessarily heard that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay. So what was your like I mean, I did you know about your family? I mean, you obviously knew about your dad, but like even your extended family being musicians and having some kind of like, experience with that or was it just you kind of
I
took off
did.
on your own?
I knew about it,
Yeah.
just from the stories. Like I said, they had all passed away by the time I came around.
Right.
But I knew all of the stories of them and saw photographs of them in their VFW halls where they were playing, and so I knew that it was in my blood. I knew it was part of my history.
Yeah.
But even if it had not been, I was lost to it.
Yeah.
Once I saw MTV the first time, I think it was like, oh, okay, this is my life laid out in front of me. Despite the fact that I wasn't old enough to really understand that that was my life laid out in front of me. You know
Right,
what I
right.
mean?
But so you wanted to be like on MTV. You wanted to be like a
Oh, God, yeah,
rock and
yeah,
roll star.
yeah. I wanted to be a rock and roll star. I didn't know
Wow.
what that meant. I
Yeah.
just knew that, you know,
It's like,
when
how do
you're
I
a
get on
kid,
MTV? Like, let me figure this out.
how
I want
do I
to.
get on MTV? You know, mom and dad, I'm 13, but just by the way, as soon as I'm done with high school, I'm moving to Los Angeles. And you could
Yeah.
imagine, you know, like their horror hearing something from a kid.
Right.
I never moved to LA, but I knew that that was what I wanted to do,
Yeah.
and ended up following it from for for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, you leave Mobile. You said at what, 22,
I was about 22.
and
Yeah.
then you went out to the West Coast.
I went to Chapel Hill, North
Oh, Chapel
Carolina,
Hill. Right. Sorry.
playing a band, and that fizzled out, and I ended up going out to the West Coast for about a year, and I made some music there. Nothing incredibly significant.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and my girlfriend at the time was from Austin, and she wanted to move back and begged me to move with her. And
Yeah.
I was like, nah, you know, I've got a real good life out here. I don't want to move to Texas.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh my God, it's just like here, but cheaper. And I thought, well, I don't know. But I did. I went,
Yeah.
and we broke up, and I didn't have enough money to move back to California. And I ended up staying there, and it ended up being
Yeah.
pretty great.
Yeah. Well, so when was like the transition into like session musician? Is that correct to say? Like you because you've
Yeah.
had a lot of like work being a musician. So is that kind of where that
Oh, yeah.
happened, or?
Yeah. Pretty soon after I got there.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I had, I mean, you know, I've played guitar since I was a little kid, but just prior to moving there, I had started playing pedal steel guitar.
Okay.
I had purchased one, and uh, had taken some lessons and really practiced hard. And that's one of those kind of instruments where, you know, a place like Austin, Texas, you can't throw a rock without hitting a really good guitarist, right?
Sure.
But if you can play pedal steel, you can get a lot of work.
Okay.
And that's what kind of ended up happening. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was your
Yeah.
first like
And
major gig like at that point?
let's see. It's a really great question. I mean, it kind of ebbed and flowed. I ended up playing with a lot of singer-songwriters.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of singer-songwriters who, once you get outside of Texas, no one's ever heard of them.
Sure.
But in Texas, they're, you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, like a
Um,
regional artist, you know.
yeah, oh yeah.
They can
And then
pack a
I started
bar
my,
and
precisely. Yeah, there was a lot of that kind of stuff. And then I started my own band with another guitarist in, I guess, 2003. We started a group called the Summer Wardrobe, and we hit it really hard for
mhm.
about 8 years. That was and that was sort of the main thing I was doing, and I was doing session work on the side, and working odd jobs at the same time to, you know, kind of supplement income.
Mhm.
But that band, we hit it really, really hard. We signed with a small New York label called Rainbow Quartz,
Okay.
and put out a record and toured behind that, and And then we ended up being Rocky Erickson's backing band for, roughly about a year.
Yeah. How did that happen?
Well, let's see. So do you know Rocky's story?
Not really. I know the his first band, the 13th Floor Elevators, obviously like kind of pioneering psychedelic garage rock in the States, I
Yeah.
imagine, right? I don't know
Yes.
how he went solo. I don't know like what happened there exactly.
Oh wow. Okay. His
I mean, there was like
story.
mental illness, right? There was like this whole issue, like he had kind of gone crazy, right?
Well, what ended up happening in 1968, they got busted for marijuana in Texas.
Oh, okay. And that's a big
And
deal then at that time.
the big deal back then. And he had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So instead of sending him to jail, they sent him to the state hospital for
Hmm.
several years. At that time in history, electroshock therapy had not been perfected. Now electroshock therapy is utilized a great deal, and they've got it down to a science where it really helps with treatment resistant depression,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
At that time, they were still kind of trying to figure it out. And they administered shock therapy to him for a long time, and he got out, and his mental illness really sort of ebbed and flowed. And he started putting out these solo records. He became a cult artist in Texas, especially, but because he had been in the 13th Floor Elevators, he was also nationally known.
Hmm.
Um, he put out some really great solo records in the 80s. Um, and then by the early 90s, he had really deteriorated. His mental illness had really gotten the best of him. He was living with his mom, um, and his quality of life was pretty bad. Um, his youngest brother at the time was playing in the Philadelphia or the Pittsburgh Symphony. I think, yeah, it was the Pittsburgh Symphony.
Hmm.
And he got custody of Rocky, took him to Pennsylvania, and got him stabilized on medication, right? They made a documentary about that time in his life. This really great documentary called You're Gonna Miss Me. Anyway,
Yeah.
got him stabilized on medication, and moved him back to Austin. And at that time, his brother really loved my band, and they would come see us.
Hmm.
And my God, I mean, that alone was really surreal. And I don't remember exactly how it happened. We ended up backing him at a show here in New York City. Um, and then, that kind of started it. We like I said, we only did it for about a year, and
Hmm.
it was not like going out on the road. You didn't really get in a bus. Like, we would fly to, say, Los Angeles or fly to San Francisco and
You do
do
one
dates.
offs.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And it was boy, it was definitely part of my education, you know.
I bet. I bet you learned a lot from that.
It was
Especially so
incredible.
that was the first main big gig, like the big kind
It was
of
the
the
first
first
like
big
really
thing.
big.
Yeah.
Yeah, biggest for me, really. I mean, I got to play with him on the Austin City Limits television show,
Oh, okay. Cool.
and Billy Gibbons was the guest guitarist. And
Nice.
my God, it was surreal. The whole time we were filming, I still remember just thinking, oh my God, I used to watch this show with my dad when I was a kid. And I would look over and be like, and oh my God, I'm playing with Billy Gibbons and he's being really nice to me. You know what
Yeah.
I
Billy Gibbons, ZZ Top. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Amazing.
so that was, after that experience, I could have very easily just retired and been like, I'm good.
Sure. Well,
It was
but you're a glutton for punishment, and so
glutton for
you've been
punishment.
creating your own band since.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is the Royal Arctic Institute like the first bit like major, or at least like the first like full time gig that you or of your own that you have created since being like a session musician?
Summer Wardrobe was like the first one,
Yeah,
you
but I
know.
mean like because then you backed Rocky, and
Right.
then from
Right.
there you kind of like you did the 1 year with him, and so then
Yeah.
Summer Wardrobe continued, I guess, after that.
Yeah, we continued for a couple of years after that. We put out another record on a San Antonio label, and then we kind of hit a wall, as bands tend to do. And I
Mm,
think we were pretty tired. We had worked it pretty hard with sort of diminishing returns.
yeah. No support, no major support, no.
No major support. No, I mean we were on two very small labels that were it was great, I mean we that was a great experience, but then we kind of fizzled out a little bit,
Yeah.
and I ended up marrying a woman from right across the river from New York City, who grew up in New Jersey, right across the river.
Hmm.
And I was done with Austin, and she wanted to come back to the East Coast, and so we moved up to New York, and we've been here 10 years now. I was really, by the time we left, I couldn't wait to leave Texas,
Oh yeah.
primarily because of the heat. My God,
Yeah.
like living in a convection oven 9 or 10 months out of the year, and I was done.
Yeah. I can imagine.
So moved up here, and I didn't play music for a while, because I didn't really know that many people, and I had gone to graduate school at that time,
Hmm.
um, and that took up most of my energy. But I really missed playing, and I was pretty depressed about that.
Hmm.
So I got a call from a Texas songwriter that I had played with, a really wonderful, crazy talented guy named Robert LaRoche, who is still in Austin. But he called me out of the blue and was like, "Look, do you want to go on a European tour with me for 5 weeks?"
Hmm.
And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I think I can do that. That would be a lot of fun." And so
Yeah.
I went, and went over there with him for about 5 weeks, and it was wonderful. And at the very end, um, right before I was flying back to New York, we had one night off, and I remember I went to this coffee shop in Germany and sat down by myself and thought, when you get back to the States, when you get back to New York, you have got to put yourself out there and get active again playing
Hmm.
music. It's too important. This feels too good. You miss it too much, you
Hmm.
know. Now you have another career that affords you the luxury of not having to care if anyone likes the music that you're making, right?
Sure.
Because you're not dependent upon it financially. So it having a career outside of music really allowed that freedom. So I got back to New York and met some people and started the Royal Arctic Institute.
Oh, okay. So what
And
year was that
we've
exactly?
been, that was 2016.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we cranked up in 2016. And we've been going strong ever since, you know?
Right, right. Yeah, you have the newest EP out from
Yes.
Coma to Catharsis, right?
Yes.
Not to be confused
Yeah.
with From Catnip to a Coma.
Catnap. From
Catnap. I'm
catnap.
sorry. Oh my God, did I say that
Everybody
too?
calls it catnip to coma. It's so okay. Everybody,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty easy mistake to make.
Okay, from
Yeah. So
Catnap
we
to
made
Coma.
we made from catnap to coma. That came out this time last year.
Yeah, I saw that.
Uh, yeah, that came out this time last year,
Was that
and
planned? Did you
then
kind of mean for that to happen?
no, no,
Just
we did not.
coincidental. Okay.
It was coincidental. Um, the way it happened is we made that record with James McNew from Yola Tango
Mm-hmm.
and put it out, and we did a short East Coast tour and just worked that record. And then we had an opportunity. So hang on. So we didn't know that necessarily that we were going to be making a sequel to it until we got the opportunity to work with James again last summer.
Yeah.
And so we went in and recorded with him again, and that's how this new record came about.
Okay. And how did you meet James?
Our drummer Lyle Hyson, um, he and our bassist David Matamid, they were in the legendary pre-grunge rock band Das Damen from New
Okay.
York City back
Yeah.
in the mid to late 80s. And so they've known the Yola Tango people since then. I think they even shared a rehearsal space with them at one point. So they've
Hmm.
all known one another for years and years.
Oh, okay.
And so it was kind of, it was a very fortuitous pairing.
Right.
And it working with him was great. He's great to work with. He's so laid back and uh so positive and joyful, and it's really easy working with him. So
Yeah.
when we got the opportunity to do it a second time, we really kind of jumped at it.
Yeah, I've been listening to a good portion of the Royal Arctic Institute's catalog as of today. I think I've listened to just about everything. Um,
Oh, cool.
yeah, it's great music. It's all instrumental.
Mm-hmm.
Is it fair to say, or like, because I'm not too familiar with everything that you've done in the past. I haven't listened to the Summer Wardrobe at all. But is this like the first thing of its kind that you're doing?
Right after Summer Wardrobe broke up, I put together a trio in Austin that did instrumental music, and that lasted about a year, right up until I moved with
Hmm.
some very good friends of mine, and we put out a record right before I left. So that was kind of the beginning of doing the instrumental music.
Okay.
um Summer Wardrobe was a like a band with a singer
Like a rock band.
and maybe like a very strange psychedelic rock band. Yeah, we were kind of like Pink Floyd if Roger Waters had grown up in southern Louisiana.
Okay.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It
Sure.
was
Sure.
so yeah, so Royal Arctic Institute is the first like major group that I've done instrumental music with.
Yeah.
And it was never really an option of being a vocal band, just because I can't sing, and even if I could, I can't sing and play at the same time.
Oh,
So
okay.
like,
But no one else
yeah, that would
aspired
have been
to do vocals either?
nah. No, we just focused on the music, and
Sure.
it just turned out that way. We all love instrumental music. We all love film scores
Hmm.
um and a lot of the stuff that I listen to now, like the music of Bill Frisell, it's all well, primarily all instrumental stuff. And
Yeah.
so I was very attracted to that. And that's kind of how it happened.
Oh, okay. Cool. Because so having you here today to talk with me on this show, what we do is we talk about influential music and specifically an influential record of your choice. And so I find it to be
Mhm.
a very interesting pairing to say, okay, you've chosen Game Theory's Lolita Nation.
Yeah. I
So,
know. Isn't that odd?
well, yeah, I mean, it's not odd because I understand that musicians have a wide swath of shit that they've been subject to and kind of experimented with, and who knows what lands with you where at what time. So, what was your experience finding this record? Like, when's the first time you heard it? Can you remember?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I well, let me say, I've said this in so many different interviews, so I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I mean this.
Okay.
I believe that whatever stuff you are listening to when you go through puberty becomes just imprinted on you, right?
Sure.
And
Okay.
so at that time, I was listening to that little 10-watt college radio station in my hometown. And I used to sit up with my cassette player and record the radio shows so I could listen to that music over and over and over again. And
Right.
they played a Game Theory song one night from the record right before Lolita Nation.
Okay.
And it was a record called The Big Shot Chronicles
Right. Okay.
and came out in 1986. And so I got that record and just loved it. And that was back, you know, I don't, God, I don't remember at that time how we found out about new records coming out. I guess it being announced on college radio. I don't really remember.
Hmm.
But I
Yeah.
remember going and seeing Lolita Nation at the record store and not having seen it before, right? I didn't
Yeah.
realize at that time, well, this is brand new. It just came out and bought it. And man, that record has been the soundtrack for so many aspects and so many different times in my life.
Yeah.
It's
And
brilliant.
double album. So like going
Yeah,
into the store at that time, 86, no, 87, I guess,
yeah,
right?
87. Yeah.
And you only
Yeah.
knew a few songs off of Big Shot Chronicles, like prior
Well,
to that from the
I knew
radio?
that whole record.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
well, I went out and bought that record, and that, I mean, Big Shot Chronicles is a great record, but Lolita Nation, not only is it a double album, but I mean, it really is meant to be listened to as one big giant piece of art from
Right.
start to finish.
Yep.
It was produced by Mitch Easter, who had produced like the early REM records.
Mm-hmm.
He had his own band called Let's Active. It was also a really great band. Um, so yeah, there was the production on Lolita Nation just in and of itself. I mean, let's take Scott Miller's songwriting and put it over here for a minute, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
the production alone that Mitch Easter did on that record for the time that it was done was brilliant.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it's kind of timeless. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
sound like an 80s record and
Uh-uh.
kind of to be, kind of not to compare it to REM, but obviously, Mitch Easter famously having produced them, and they had kind of been blowing up so much at this time, and their
Yeah.
records are kind of the same. I mean, they have a very similar feel and sound to them, those early REM records, and these records, the records that Mitch Easter did with Game Theory. So it's so timeless in the sense that I listen to it and I don't necessarily think it's an 80s record.
Right, right. Kind of like I feel the same way about Marquee Moon.
Oh yeah.
You
Hmm.
know, that's another record where when I listen to that, I mean, it could have been made yesterday.
Yeah.
It's really timeless. That's a great word for it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know what you mean. Lolita Nation is it's a powerful work of art. It was
Yeah.
just released like 2 years ago. It was re-released. It
Oh
was
yeah, they did a reissue of it.
they did a reissue with all of this bonus material because Scott Miller took his
Passed
own
away.
life back in
Yeah.
2018.
Right.
And so since then, all of those Game Theory and Loud Family records have been re-released.
Hmm. Yeah. I did hear about his passing away. I didn't hear how. Not really familiar with his story, especially after this point. Kind of all the research I did was kind of like focused on this time period.
Well, apparently, within the world of computer programming,
Hmm.
he was apparently a really big deal.
Oh, really?
Apparently so. Yeah, I mean he was a heavy hitter within the computer programming world,
Hmm. Okay.
um, which I know nothing about. You
Me neither
know?
do I.
But he had one of those minds where uh, okay, so not only was he a brilliant songwriter, not only was he a computer programming genius, he was also a James Joyce scholar, more
Oh.
specifically, a Finnegan's Wake scholar.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure what that means. I mean, I saw some connection to him and Joyce. I didn't realize that he was actually like kind of like educated to
Oh
that
yeah,
degree.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, I'm an avid reader, and I tried to read Finnegan's Wake. And after about a chapter, I was like, this is about 2 hours of my life I'm never going to get back. I'm done.
Yeah. It's
It,
hard stuff, huh?
yeah, and so he was just one of those people that could really tear that stuff apart. He had just such an analytical mind.
Hmm.
I think that shows in his songwriting as well.
Sure, sure. I mean, I've definitely read a lot of things saying, kind of comparing his lyricism to that of Joyce. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
familiar with the comparison. I'm not sure like how so. I mean, his lyrics are kind of they're definitely hard to analyze. They're kind of subjective. Like you can kind of pull a lot out of it if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
Um, but I found it hard. I found it very hard to kind of comprehend myself and kind of like figure it out. You know, it's very enigmatic, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, so now this album, Games Theory's Lolita Nation. I'm curious, where in your mind did you go to make this choice? Like, why this album?
Because it has been the soundtrack to so many different times in my life.
Hmm.
I always go back to it. This is the best way that I can describe it. I've listened to this record so much it's kind of the same thing that I have with Led Zeppelin. Okay. I've listened to it so much that I can go for a long time not listening to it. I can
Mhm.
go for a really long time not listening to Led Zeppelin.
Sure.
But when I do, I end up hitting it really hard, and like it will become the soundtrack for say 6 weeks.
Right. Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
So
because it evokes so much joy for so many
yes,
reasons, and especially if it's you've been carrying it with you for your entire life since those early days of your prepubescence, let's just say
yeah.
that yeah, it hits all the good feelings and some of the bad that you can kind of like draw from, I'm sure, but okay, because it's so different from what you are doing currently with the Royal
Oh
Arctic
God, it
Institute.
could not be any more different.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so. I know that if people really listen to the Royal Arctic Institute and then hear that this is one of the biggest musical inspirations of my life, it's going to be really hard to connect the dots on that one. I know.
Yeah. I think it would, but I mean, but it is intriguing, just for that reason. I mean, like doing this show, it's not often that I will speak to somebody that chooses a record that seems so far off from where they are currently. But
Mm-hmm.
it's not. But I understand it. I get it. I get it as a
Sure.
musician. I get it as a music fan. That's totally fine. I was just kind of curious where your mind went to kind of make the choice, and so that definitely kind of says a lot. So considering like I'm hearing about all of this like kind of like punky influence you have on yourself, do you see yourself at any point kind of getting into that? Even as like a side gig, as like just kind of like a one off or something, like doing something punky.
Man, I would love to.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that would be a lot of fun. I mean, I don't. I would love to be in a situation where I could return once again to turning up really loud
Sure.
and
Yeah.
playing. I don't. I don't know if that's going to happen. I
Okay.
would love for it to.
Yeah, yeah. Just curious.
Now,
As a matter of
now
fact, the only time I've ever seen you, I've seen you play live,
oh,
and it was fairly recently. You played at Dusk in Providence with Mini Watt, Mini Beast. I'm
oh,
sorry,
yeah,
Mini Beast is what I meant
maybe.
to say.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Okay, you
yeah.
were
I'm a
at
big
that.
Mini Beast fan, so I saw that happening, and I was just like, okay, I'm definitely going because I love that band.
Oh, wow. We're playing with Mini Beast this Friday in Kingston, New York.
Yes, I saw.
Yeah,
I don't think that's gonna. I'm not gonna have this up in time for that show, but
it's
yeah, I did
okay.
see that happening. That's cool.
Oh, they're great. Peter Prescott's just a great guy.
Yeah, yeah, he is. I love him.
You know? Oh, I do too. Just really wonderful, wonderful guy. And um, boy, they how can I describe my experience of Mini Beast? It's I mean this in a positive way. Okay.
Hmm.
It's like being assaulted.
Okay. All
You
right.
know what I mean? Like it's like getting hit in the sternum by like a heavyweight boxer.
Yeah.
They're incredible, but they are
Yeah.
very intense.
Well, what I say is that they're kind of like an aphrodisiac. Like I'll say this, and I have never talked to Peter about this, but
Mm-hmm.
I can see all of those guys like going home and just like having the best sex of their lives with their partners.
You
Like
need to tell Peter that.
it's primal. It's
It
like
is that's the adjective. They're so primal,
yeah, yeah,
right?
right.
That's what I meant when I said it feels like being assaulted
Yeah, yeah, in a good way. Sure,
in a
I get it.
good way. You've got to tell Peter that.
I think maybe I talked to Nils at their
Uh-huh.
last show here in Providence, and I think I
Okay.
said that to him because they like I don't know. I was talking to him about a couple things, and
Would
Because
it be okay with you if I said it to him on Friday?
sure, hey, go, of course, tell him. That's just how I envision it. That's what it's like. The end of the night at the Mini B show, I'm just like, that's what's happening. I know it.
Wow. Okay.
All right, but back to the Royal Arctic Institute and game theory's Lolita Nation.
Yeah.
We might as well get into this record, try to feel it out a little bit because it's a tough one and it's extremely long. So
Yes.
just to let you know, I'm only going to go over a couple of the songs.
Okay.
Like, I can't obviously touch on everything on here because it's
No,
just,
I mean it's too much.
yes, it really is. Let's see. Let's just start off right at the beginning. You got the opening track, Kenneth. What's the frequency?
Mm-hmm.
The song itself. Okay, so it's a good introduction to the record because it's a 43-second long track, and that's what I realized. Like, I was listening to this digitally. I never had a physical copy of this, but there are so many just the tiny little tracks. There's a bunch of this like noise essentially that they kind of like
Yeah.
piece together with the music, and if you're not paying attention to the track changes, you might not even know where that's happening.
Yes. That is precisely correct. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Especially when you get kind of to the middle of the record and there's this whole soundscape that they just kind of put in there that's all of these pieces spliced together of people talking and weird noises, and there's one part where it's just a vacuum cleaner that you hear in the background.
yeah.
For its time it was pretty great.
Yeah, I think that's the third side of the record, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah.
I've heard a lot about the third side.
Mhm.
So Kenneth, what's the frequency? I'm not very learned in REM history, but I can imagine that there's like this possible connection between what REM went on to do with their song "What's the Frequency, Kenneth," and this song, or at least there's the Mitch Easter connection. There's a lot of like these things, right? So what do you know about that possible connection of REM and this song and this band?
Uh, well, what's the frequency, Kenneth? I think, boy, I am not going to be able to do this justice, but apparently in the 80s, there was a news anchor named Kenneth something, and he was assaulted by a man who was mentally ill. And right before being assaulted, the guy yelled out, "Kenneth, what's the frequency?"
Huh.
I
Okay.
think that's the story I've heard. I think I just got that right. Don't quote me on that, but it was something like that. It
Well,
was
that's
this
your experience.
thing.
That's what you remember from it.
Yeah, there was
Okay.
this thing that happened in the 80s where some, mentally ill man yelled that out and then assaulted a news anchor.
Okay. Weird.
So I, I don't know if REM was playing off of the Game Theory song. I
Yeah.
know that they've all heard it.
I
you
mean,
know.
I figured they had to have. I mean, like I can
Oh,
definitely hear some like what could have been. I guess I guess they're kind of like happening at the same time. The like Game Theory's kind of career, especially up to this point of this record, REM is currently active and making music. I don't know what they were making at the time. No, not document. I don't know.
document
Was it
document came
okay?
out in 1987.
So they were a big band at this point,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
but they're one of those bands that are known for kind of like being very vocal about their inspirations or their influences or what they're hearing and listening to. And I've never heard them mention this band. I've never heard of this band before until you requested it for
Really?
this show today.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I know. Oh God, there was some interview or some list or some poll that Peter Buck was participated in where he cited Game Theory as one of the greatest bands of the 80s.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely hear a lot of connections between what they were doing, what I know of them. I'm not a huge REM fan, but what I know of what they did, and obviously what I've been listening to from this band, and I've been meaning to get into the other things, but I was just like, I got to focus on this record for now because this is challenging enough. But all right, so let's move on to the next song, Not Because You Can.
Yeah, boy, the opening of that, the drums, that drum
Mm-hmm.
line where Gil Ray was their drummer. He passed away a few years ago from cancer.
No.
He was just a monster drummer. That song just starts off so powerfully. The thing that here's, I think one of the things that I love so much about Scott Miller's songwriting, we talked earlier about how he had this very analytical mind, and his lyrics could be very enigmatic and a little difficult, but he managed in his songwriting to nestle all of that within these really great pop songs.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I mean, he was a huge Beatles fan, so pretty much all the songs follow the structure of verse, chorus, bridge, chorus out, typically,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Sure.
And that's one of the things that I love so much about this record is that it's really pretentious in concept, but in execution, it's really not pretentious at all. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean by that?
Well, kind of, yeah. I mean, like I don't know Scott very well. I don't know a lot of his work very well, but I can tell that he was a of a scholarly mind, I guess.
Yeah.
Very intelligent, and it kind of comes through in this music. Like it's hard to understand. It's I mean, if you just kind of like just take it at its face value of like a pop band. They're a pop band. I can just listen to the music and just kind of enjoy
Mhm.
it for what it is. But if you kind of really want to become one of those people that kind of analyzes and kind of like dissects this thing, it's you could get kind of get it lost very easily.
Yeah. 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 But all of, like you just said, with it being a pop band, most of the songs have just really great hooks.
Mm-hmm.
They really
Yeah.
get, you know?
Yeah. You know, so it's funny, like, so listening, I put this on for the first time, not knowing anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
Not a single thing. Didn't know who Scott Miller was. Didn't know anything about the band's history.
God, what
And
an adventure.
it's been weird. It's
Fun, yeah.
it's been weird, and it's been hard because it's been hard to find anything of significance to this record and its history. But
Mhm.
so just listening to it, I was kind of overwhelmed by the uncanny similarity between Scott and one of my favorites, Ted Leo.
Oh God, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
not knowing anything. I mean, like if I was just listening to this without being told what it was, I would probably say like that could possibly be a pharmacist's record.
Well, you know, Ted Leo's a huge Scott Miller fan.
I don't know that for a fact, but I
Oh,
mean I'm not surprised by it.
okay. Well, so here's something. A few years ago, Scott Miller's wife, well, I guess widow now,
Hmm.
had all of these demos that he had done at home and all of these song lyrics that he had left behind. So she got some of his, you know, some of these musicians who just loved him. She got them together and they did this whole project where they, the, let's see, the demos that he left behind, they recorded music around it, right?
Hmm. Okay.
And then all of the lyrics that were left behind, different artists would write music for the lyrics and record them. So Ted Leo was on it.
Hmm.
What's his name? Will Sheff from Okerville River
Yep.
was on it.
Okay. Makes
Peter,
sense.
Peter Buck played guitar on a lot of it. The guys from the Posies produced it, and I think Mitch Easter played on it. So it's called Super Fragile.
Oh, that was his last record.
That
That
was
like
the one,
okay,
right? That was the one that came out just a few years ago. A posthumous record.
right, right.
And so yeah, Ted Leo was on that.
Oh, okay, cool. Oddly enough, I found out that Scott Miller actually, later in his life, close to his end, was actually working with Amy Mann.
Yes, one of those songs is on that record.
Okay, well, because supposedly she lost the tapes that they had been working on together. So no one knows anything about that project for the most part. And I just thought it was funny because being a fan of Ted Leo, I knew that he was in a project with Amy Mann,
Mm-hmm.
the both, and I was just like this.
They do like a yearly New Year's Eve show, or
Yeah, they do that, but I mean, like they were in a band together called the Both, and they put a record out together.
oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I can only imagine that that's kind of like what maybe she and Scott had, prior to his passing.
I I knew that they had recorded some songs together. I did not know that she lost the material, but
From
one of them exists and ended up on that posthumous Game Theory record, and
oh,
it's
cool.
beautiful. It's
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna have to listen to it because I love her work for the most part. I mean, I'm not a huge fan, but I definitely like what she does, and what I'm learning about Scott Miller now. I mean, I can definitely get into it. So, and I definitely want to hear that now. Nothing that you mentioned it, and kind of like see that it's kind of like this who's who of record collaboration for in Scott's honor. Sounds
Oh yeah.
great.
The song that Will Sheff from Okerville River wrote the music for and performs is just brilliant.
Yeah,
Absolutely brilliant. What he did with those lyrics, uh, my hat's off to him. It's just wonderful.
cool. Okay, yeah, I'll definitely listen to it at some point soon. I'll put it in the queue. All right, well, let's keep on moving. Let's see. One of the next tracks, I'm going to skip a few because there's a few really short ones. Go Ahead, You're Dying To.
Oh God, isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, it's really weird because
Yeah.
it's a short number that's just bass and vocals, right?
Guitar and vocals, yeah. Doug Gillard of Guided by Voices did a cover of that a few years ago,
Hmm.
and he
Okay.
nails it. Oh,
Yeah.
it's so good. That's one of my favorite tunes on the record.
Very
Yeah,
short, 37 seconds long.
yeah, yeah.
And then that goes like right into Dripping with Looks.
Yep, yep.
All right, so Dripping with Looks. This is a longer song. It's kind of more of a kind of a traditional. I mean, not necessarily traditional, but I mean, it's definitely one of the poppier songs on the record.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure what I have to say about this would be analytically wrong.
Okay.
But by the title, Dripping with Looks, it sounds to me like it's describing someone that just has like this next level of coolness to them.
Oh wow,
Just
cool.
dripping with looks. This person's just so fucking cool.
Yeah, they're on
Um,
fleek, as the kids would say.
they're what?
I think the kids now say that if you're super cool, then you are on fleek. I
On
don't know what
fleek.
it. Yeah, that's young people
Yeah.
go.
Okay, I'll
I
ask my
can't
kids. I'll
keep
see
up
if they know
anymore.
anything about it. um, I haven't heard that yet.
Yeah,
um,
I only heard it recently, and I thought that's kind of delightful. I don't really know what it means, but I'm gonna
yeah,
go with it and start using it.
yeah. The kids speaking codes these days. It seems I don't get
It's
any of it.
incredible.
So yeah. So even more than looks, sometimes it's even a gravitational pull that like that of some major stars, right? It's
Hmm.
just like more so than what they look like. It's just they just got this energy, just kind of pull you in.
Yep.
And so now I know that we've been talking a little bit about your history playing with other people, and specifically like Rocky Erickson. Uh,
Mhm.
we already kind of touched on this a little bit, but like, what's that experience been like for you to have this large presence up front as like the center of attention, and you being the backing artist?
Oh, it's awesome because none of the attention's on me.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's great. You get to sit back and watch all of the attention and energy focused on this one person. And it takes a lot of pressure off of you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Somebody in the background. And God, okay, so I remember playing in Los Angeles with Rocky Erickson, and it was like his first show there since 1984,
Mm-hmm.
and we played at the El Rey Theater, and I don't know if you've ever been there,
I
but
have not.
the stage has these big, beautiful velvet curtains that are in front of it, like so you walk in and you just see these big, beautiful velvet curtains. And when it was time to play, we went out on stage behind these curtains and we struck up the first chords to the first tune. And as those red curtains parted, people went fucking nuts, you know.
Yeah.
And it was all focused on him.
Right.
And I just got to sit back and enjoy it. It was
Yeah.
great. Nobody was looking at me.
Right, right. But I mean, so that's the thing, is it's like, I mean, you are an artist, you are a musician and a performer. Every performer's got a little bit of ego in you. So I mean, like,
Oh God, yeah,
that was cool with you to just not have the attention and not, play for these larger audiences and not really get anything out of it for yourself personally.
absolutely.
Okay.
Because of who it was I was getting to play with.
Sure, sure.
That makes sense. It was such an honor to get to play with him that um, you know, subsuming your ego for the greater good of backing someone like that. It was pretty easy, you
Yeah.
know.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Don't get
So
me wrong. I was nervous every
yeah.
time I played, but not if it had been the Royal Arctic Institute, uh, I would have probably had a panic attack. you
Right,
know,
right. Well,
you
see,
know what
because
I'm
yeah,
exaggerating, but that was a huge group of people, and with them being as enthusiastic for him as they were, like if I
right.
were in his shoes, I would probably crumble in a minute. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah. Well, because I was curious about that because, from what I understand and what I've seen of the Royal Arctic Institute, um, there doesn't seem to be a front person for them,
nope,
for that
there's
group.
not. We're
Yeah.
we're we're very much a collective.
Right.
Kind of like there's not a front person for Tortoise, right?
Hmm.
The big instrumental group Tortoise.
I know them. I'm not too familiar with their catalog, but yeah.
They're a big they're a big collective of musicians that come together, and there's not one main person.
Right.
They kind of go in rounds, and
So
we're
was that by design for the RAI, I'll call them?
um I guess I don't know that it was something that we ever thought about. We're very much it's just such a collaborative group.
Hmm.
Everybody brings pieces of music in. We all like, let's say I write a piece of music at home. I will demo it out in my home studio. I'll email it to the guys. We show up at rehearsal and we take it and completely deconstruct it, right?
Hmm.
And we all write parts and we play with the arrangement, and oftentimes by the time we have a final piece, it doesn't sound much like the original piece of music.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it's and that's really fun. Um, I love that process. And if there was one of us fronting the group, it just that probably wouldn't be the case.
Yeah. Probably wouldn't be as enjoyable either, considering.
And speaking for myself, I've never ever really had any ambition to front a group.
Mm-hmm.
That was really my thing.
Okay. Yeah. Like as you said, you're not a singer, so.
No, no, God, no, no. That's something that you do not want to hear.
Sure. Hey, I'm in the same boat. I don't do it either. All right. Well, speaking of something related to that, the next song, exactly what we don't want to hear.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah, I mean, I really like the song, and I've been dying to get to this one because it's kind of interesting. I feel like, is it me or does this sound like a jaded take on trying to buy new music?
Huh? No, I had never thought of it like that. I just think of that track as being pretty different from most of the other songs on the record. Say a little
Musically?
more. Well, just kind of. I don't know.
Yeah.
Say a little more about what you mean.
Well, because so I was thinking about it, like I was listening to it, and like to me, it just sounds like a jaded musician. And if you think about Scott Miller's, history up to this point, he's not been a successful musician. Like,
Right.
little bits of success. He's been on a label and he has been able to put these records out, and he's been able to work with like great people and like Mitch Easter as a producer and so forth. But he's not breaking, right?
Right.
So there's mention of like I can't remember the lyrics precisely, but there's a mention of being a prima donna, and I'm curious if that's like kind of like his lyrical kind of poetic license to be pre-Madonna, as in Madonna, like the '80s pop star at the time.
Oh wow.
Waiting
Wow.
in
I didn't,
line to get music, like waiting in line for something for so long, right? Something like that. Like, um, there's something lyrically at the end of the song, something about listening with good ears, right? I can't remember it now.
I can't remember the exact line, but yes.
Yeah.
And I think wow, that's a really interesting interpretation. I, uh, it's kind of great.
Oh,
I've
thank
never
you.
thought of it like that before. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, because I know what it's like to be a jaded musician, and like one of the last bands I was in, the songwriter of that band wrote something to this effect, like
I see.
lyrically, it's very very like pointed at like fuck this guy, fuck this famous band, like here we are, slugging away in the van type thing.
Starving to death.
Yeah, and it's just
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, kind of just waiting for your break, I guess, like hoping for a break or something.
What was that band?
Barn Burning never really did anything, I mean, kind of like
Okay.
just put out one record with them, and like I said, a lot of songs about what the fuck, why can't we get a break?
Why you and not me? Right?
I guess so, kind of, yeah. I mean, that's the songwriter's
Yeah, no, I
interpretation,
get
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I get it.
But
Yeah.
there's a lot of that, I feel. I mean, like, like I think that there's plenty of bands out there that don't, kind of like see the light of day for the most part, especially on like on a major outlet of any sort. And
Oh,
I
true.
mean, you can get disheartened by it, you can kind of just get run down by it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and the fact that Scott Miller never had any real commercial success is it's, God, it's kind of criminal, I mean, what a talented
You can say that about
uh
so many people though, really. I mean,
about
because
so many people.
there's so many
Yeah.
people putting music out. It's just how do
And
we deal
there's
with it?
and how do we find it? Especially now with there just being so much. music.
Right.
How do you I think people really are falling into wanting to have it curated for them.
Spotify
I know
playlists.
I Spotify playlists, Spotify has Discover Weekly on it. I'll
Right.
sit and go through that and have found some groups that I really like
Yeah.
through that I would have never heard of.
Right.
you know
Well, so my question
Soccer
for you,
mom.
because of this song, was what is your experience with buying new music nowadays?
It's that. I all of my friends in the music community will probably cancel me for saying this, but uh, I use Spotify,
Yeah.
right? And so the way I typically hear new music is kind of like what I just said. They have a discover section where they curate things based on your listening history, right?
Sure. Right. The algorithm.
Um, the algorithm, and so I sometimes I'll just sit down with that and kind of listen through a playlist.
Hmm.
And if something jumps out that I really like, you go to that artist page and listen to their records. And
Right.
that's kind of how I do it now. And my
Sure.
music consumption at this stage in my life happens in the car and on Sundays while I'm cooking for the week.
Okay. Yeah.
I
That's good.
spend typically, unless I'm doing something else, every Sunday I cook for the week and I turn it into this all day thing
Hmm.
where I put on noise canceling headphones and really just delve into stuff while I'm cooking.
Hmm.
So
Interesting.
those are the two primary times that I really listen to music now.
Okay.
And it's
Cool.
great.
So, what is considering the song title exactly what we don't want to hear? I've obviously it's like kind of a sarcastic take on like trying to listen to something, but it's just like you can't stand it. What is something you can't
Mm-hmm.
stand
Musically?
musically? Yeah.
Oh, well, um, I really, uh, I really can't stand you two.
Interesting. You should say that.
um, um, but no, okay. So as a guitarist, um, all rock and roll, of course, is based on the blues.
Hmm.
Um, and you need to know that stuff. You need to learn how to play Chuck Berry tunes, and you need to learn that stuff in order to be competent, right?
Hmm.
Um, but I really can't stand what I can't stand blues now,
Okay.
really.
Modern day
I mean,
blues. Yeah.
yeah, I mean it's been done, right? And you're not going to reinvent the wheel with that one. And you have so many musicians who they just play the same blues songs and the same blues riffs.
Right.
And I want you to do something interesting. You
Right.
don't have to be great, but just do something creative. You're not Howlin' Wolf. You're not going to be the next you're not going to be the next Stevie Ray Vaughan or any of those things.
Hmm.
And it's that stuff's so popular. I just and also take me with a grain of salt. I lived in Texas for so long
Hmm.
that I
You must
just
have
got
saw a lot of it.
so
Yeah.
sick of that stuff.
Right.
So when that stuff comes on, my eyes kind of glaze over now.
Sure. Sure. And to be completely honest with you, I mean, like, I don't buy the white boy blues.
Nah,
It's just
Yeah.
like, come on, man,
Gross.
really?
It's
I
gross.
mean,
Yeah.
it's just like the blues
No,
is
I'm with
for
you.
people with hardships. How hard are you having it, really?
Right, right, right. You know. Now, that being said, I have to acknowledge and applaud anyone who aspires to do an art of any kind. Who am
Sure.
I to sit here and say, you shouldn't be a blues musician? Who nobody has any fucking idea who I am. You know what I mean?
Sure,
I
sure.
and who am I to tell you that, you shouldn't try to be Lightning Hopkins or whatever.
I agree with
But
you. I
boy,
mean,
I,
I was just asking you what you don't like. I mean,
yeah.
we're not
Well,
shitting
I
on
always
people that play blues. We just don't get it.
right. Right. But I mean, I've been known to shit on people who play blues.
Sure. Well, why not?
I will admit to it. I can be surly sometimes and go, try to consume music and go try to enjoy live music, and somebody will start playing blues guitar, and I'm just like, oh God, I need to
Mm,
go home.
yeah. It's a little dull for me. I do admit. I agree with you. All right, let's move on. As a matter of fact, you know what? I think I only have like two more for you because there's a good amount that I had to skip.
That's okay. It's
So,
okay. This is Damn, before we even get to these two more, this has been so much fun.
oh well, thank you. I'm
I
glad that
don't
you're
think
having a
that
good time.
I've never been able to really talk about this record with anybody in the depth that you and I are going with it. This is
Yeah.
great.
Well, who knows it?
Yeah, nobody.
That was kind of the thing. Like
Nobody.
you proposed this record to me. I was just like, what the fuck is this? I don't know what this band is.
Yeah,
I've never heard of this before. So, and I mean, it's
yeah,
interesting how it's kind of like had this like staying power and this kind of ability to kind of like hit a lot of kind of big people, a lot of like influential people. Let's even call it that.
yeah.
This has been able to make a mark, but it's just one of those things. It's just obscure. It's just obscure enough.
Just obscure enough. That's a
Yeah.
great way to put it.
Yeah. So I mean, it's been very interesting. All right. So the next song, "The Waist and the Knees."
Oh man, that's a powerful one.
Yeah, it's a great one, isn't it? It's definitely one of my
Yeah,
favorites.
yeah, me too. I never got to see Game Theory, but I got to see the Loud Family several times,
Oh, cool.
and they would play that one live. The Loud Family live, they would play a lot of Game Theory material,
Hmm.
and that one live was just, my God, it was like blowing the roof off the place.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, it's a really great song. I really do love it. Particular attention to be paid, towards the end of the song, where it seems that Scott kind of twists the knife or pokes fun at record labels and their contracts.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. When he's doing that sort of what's the line? Agreements this day will be made to the undersigned. No one twisting his arm.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that what you're getting at? Yeah.
Well, all of
Oh,
it. That whole part after it like kind of changes tempo a little bit, and it's
mhm.
just like the kind of A Bing vocals. You can kind of hear them going back and forth. It's essentially like this mock reading of a contract.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And that record originally came out on Enigma Records.
Hmm.
Do you remember Enigma?
The name sounded familiar to me, but you know what? I honestly can't think of anything else that came out on Enigma.
They so that was an 80s record label based in California, and like in 1984 they put out a double album called the Enigma Variations. It was like the compilation of everything that was on the label at the time.
Oh, okay.
Then they put out Enigma Variations Part 2. um there were people like, let's see, Red Cross put out a couple of records on Enigma.
Hmm. Yeah, there's been some punk, it seems.
Yeah, Mojo Nixon was on there.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, I mean, they it was a little more obscure. They were a pretty small label at the time, but all of that game theory stuff came out on Enigma.
Hmm. Yeah, weird. I'm just looking it over right now, but there's also like a lot of weird 80s hair metal.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh,
Striper and
so that's the
Poison
thing. That's the thing. Enigma morphed into a hair metal uh
label.
label.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
there was a shakeup amongst the staff or the owners. I don't really know how it went, but yeah, towards the end of the 80s, they delved into that whole thing.
Oh, okay. Weird. Yeah. Yeah, because they have a bunch of good punk stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Agent Orange, TSOL,
Yes.
DRI, Wipers. But then, yeah, went into like Cinderella and fucking Poison or some shit, it looks like.
Yeah. I mean, it was just unbridled testosterone and um, how shall we say, uh, decadence of the era.
Sure, sure. I mean, it seemed like the epitome of everything that is wrong with mainstream rock music.
Oh, it was horrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I bet now here, I agree with you totally. I bet that if you had been one of those hair metal musicians at that time with any amount of success,
Hmm.
I bet you would have had the time of your life.
Oh my God.
Can
There's
you
there's
imagine?
no, there's no
No.
end to like the excess and indulgence you could
Oh
probably
yeah.
experience.
Yeah, I would have died. It would
Yeah,
have.
I probably would have too. Yeah. All right. So we'll back to the waist and the knees. So poking fun at the record contract. What's label experience been like for you?
Um, well, I've only worked with really small labels. I've never had any dealings with, a really big label. So I
Hmm.
don't know what that's like. But the experience that we've, like, let's take the Royal Arctic Institute for example. We put out some records on Rhyme and Reason Records,
Hmm.
and now we are working with Already Dead Cassettes, who is really awesome. Um, they put out physical cassettes and records, but everything has a download code. You
Hmm.
know,
Sure.
the
That's to
whole
be
thing.
expected this day and
Yeah,
age. Yeah.
absolutely. And the whole thing with us putting out cassettes is it's cheap, and you get to hold something in your hand and have artwork.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but yeah, both of working with both of those labels has been really positive, because the people doing it, if you're going to run a small label, you have to just love it.
Hmm.
And so everyone that we've worked with has been great. They've been really nice and accommodating. And the way that it works now, I feel sure this. You pay for your recording, you pay to make your record, and then the record label um distributes it for you and does press, hopefully, and so that you don't really kind of have to focus on that part of it.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
not a lot of money anymore.
No, not that I know of.
No, unless you're huge. There seems to be such a divide between the haves and have-nots
Mm.
in the music world. Bigger,
Yeah.
just a, a divide the size of the Grand Canyon.
Yeah. Very, very strange business. Very,
Yeah. Oh my God.
very hard to figure out.
Yeah, it really is. Kind of going back to that 1980s hair metal stuff. Can you imagine, like, you know, being on a major label at that time, and you and your A&R guy doing lines of coke in a bathroom, and
Yep.
all of that stuff's
Sounds
over.
great.
It's over. All of that stuff's over.
Yeah. Well, hey, I mean, it's it's fine. I mean, I kind of like where I kind of like where I think maybe I can say that we fit in this little like niche independent arena. It's just like
Yeah.
it's cool to have like to be able to do little shows and not have to worry about like the whole major thing, like having to
Right. Not have to worry about.
and not answer to somebody like like
I
with a
see.
major. I'm imagining they breathe down your neck a lot heavier than like with independent labels as it is. And
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, you in in a well, I mean, with anything in the arts, but especially in the music industry, your success depends so much on factors that are completely out of your control.
right,
You know,
yeah,
the luck plays such a huge part in it, being seen by the right person at the right time, hoping and praying that they don't get fired right before your record comes out. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
right,
how it's almost a cliche that so many artists that I hear these stories of, they will get a small deal, and like the week before their record is released, their A&R person gets fired. Or and like it'll just
yeah,
slip through the cracks. And so there's just so much to navigate, and working with a smaller label, kind of like you said, it takes a lot of pressure off of you, so that you're really free to far better enjoy what you're doing.
yeah, right.
That's great. It's really
That's what
great.
it's about. I mean, because like between the artist, you as an artist, and then the label uh,
Mhm.
working and supporting you, the artist, it's all about your love for it. They love
Precisely.
the music that you make and everyone else that they represent. Um, and you love making the music and just are thankful and happy that somebody loves it enough to say we'll put it out for you.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right.
And talk about having your ego stroked. You know,
Yeah,
have
even better
have
than being on a major, I guess.
oh yeah, because these are music lovers who are in it for what I would consider to be all the right reasons.
Right.
And yeah, it's great. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's been my experience. It's been very positive.
Okay. Great. So then, this is going to be a little bit of a challenging one, but one of the songs on this record is called "Choose Between Two Suns," and that's where we're going to end this.
Okay.
Um, so, in closing, referring solely to the title of this song,
Yeah.
no context as to like about the music.
Uh,
I know as a father, it's impossible, but if you had to choose between these past two EPs you've released with the Royal Arctic Institute,
oh
what?
man, do not do this to me. um okay. So as you've probably experienced, making a record, by the time it's finished,
Hmm.
don't want to hear it again,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
You really you've the horse is dead for you at that point, because you've just heard it so much and you focused all this energy on it. You get all the ear fatigue from mixing and the mastering process, and so often by the time it's done, you're done.
Right.
So, and then you put some time between that, and you go back and revisit, and you can really hear it clearly, right?
Right.
So I can't answer that question precisely yet, because I am on the tail end of never wanting to hear this new record again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of both of them. But I'm just now coming back around to being able to sit down and listen to it a little more objectively. And
Right.
Um, so there has been more space between this time and the first record, right?
Right.
So I guess if I had to choose, I
So you
would,
favor the first one for now.
for now. Yeah,
Right.
for now.
Okay. Well, because I mean, I know that you are considering, or at least aspiring to put out both of them simultaneously as one vinyl record. I think, or you wanted
That
them
is,
both out on separate vinyl.
no, no, no. It's going to be all on one, and
Right.
that's happening later this year.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, they certainly work together. They certainly are a piece. Like just by the titles alone, you can kind of tell that
Mhm.
they are connected.
They were recorded exactly the same way, in the same recording space, by James. So there's that continuity. The
Hmm.
way that those records were recorded, we basically um, sat in a circle, and all of it's pretty much live. They're very minimal overdubs, very minimal. So we're not jazz musicians by any stretch, but it was recorded kind of like an old jazz record. There are a lot of room mics,
Hmm.
um, and it was, so both were done the same way, and I hope that that comes through. I
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
really hope that.
Well,
Yeah.
from what I remember of your bio, it seems that the band had a very, correct me if I'm wrong, of course, but you had a kind of a specific mindset of like where, like kind of like the framing of the music as far as just like an experience. Is that
Mhm.
correct?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not a concept record, but I I like the idea of the way they flow together and the way the tracks flow between one another. I would like for these to be listened to by someone from start to finish.
And meaning both EPs, like from Catnap to
Yeah.
Coma to Catharsis.
Yeah. So you can, in other words, go on Spotify and just put them together in a playlist
Right. Right.
and just listen to it when you're cooking on Sunday or
Yeah.
whatever.
Well,
Yeah, I
okay, so that's interesting because one of the things I was kind of getting at the very beginning of this conversation was that when I was listening to your music and all of it, the back catalog, the previous full length records and then the previous EP, um, like instrumentals, it seems like good music to do some kind of like focused task, like you're talking about, like cooking, because like your brain can start to fill in like these vocal blanks and kind of start generating your own
yes,
ideas of like where this music kind of takes you.
absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I like, kind of like I said, I love soundtrack music. Um like God, Henry Mancini's soundtrack to Touch of Evil. It's
Hmm.
great. The soundtrack to the second Blade Runner film, the score to that is gorgeous.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
um you can get lost to it, and you can forget that you're hearing it, right?
Hmm.
Funny, you know the guitarist Mark Rebo, who
No.
you heard him a million times. Like,
Okay.
he played on all of those iconic Tom Waits records. He played with Elvis Costello.
Okay.
He's a hardcore session musician, like New York. Anyway, he does a lot of film scoring, and I listened to an interview with him once where he said a film score, that it is brilliant when you forget hearing it,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
Because it becomes so much a part of the cinematic experience. It's almost like you forget.
It was subconscious. It was kind of like
I
it was
think.
what like helped inspire or influence the effect that you were visually
Yes.
consuming, right? Like
Yes.
the fear or the anticipation or the whatever, fill in the blank.
Mm-hmm. When
Okay.
those violins come in, you know exactly what it signifies, right?
Right.
And but it's such a part of the experience that it's almost like an afterthought.
Mm-hmm.
And he posits that that is the sign of a brilliant soundtrack.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess I could probably agree with that. Yeah, sounds right. So let me
I
ask you
don't,
this in
well, I don't
closing. Do you think that there's a purpose to instrumental music aside from soundtracks?
oh wow. Um, yeah, I'm not sure what it is, but I do. I mean, I don't know if it if any piece of art moves you in any way, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can say that it served a purpose,
Sure.
right? I mean, whether it's a dance piece, whether it's a literary passage or whatever, if it moves you in some way, then yes, it served a purpose.
So that's the purpose of creating
Yeah,
instrumental music.
yeah. Or I mean, or any type of music or art.
Right.
I my hope is that any art we make enriches our lives and adds some beauty and some complexity, and at times it can move you because it's horrifying. You know what I mean by that.
Any
um,
extreme emotion.
any extreme emotion. And you know I don't know if I answered your question correctly or in a way that made any sense, but that's my answer and I'm sticking to
Okay.
it.
No, I think I get it. I'm like, see, because for me, like, I'll just share this, and maybe you can expound on it or not. But so as a songwriter, which I don't really do anymore, but I have written music. Like the instrumental music that I have written was essentially um like reaching a dead end. Like
Mm,
the instrumental music that I had created was instrumental only because I couldn't figure out what to do lyrically and vocally for it.
oh wow. Okay.
And I was just like, well, I like the music, I like what it's doing, so let me just leave that as that, and it'll just be an instrumental song.
Then in that case, could we say that it served a purpose? I think
Like,
so.
well, like you said, like for any art, it's
Mhm.
the you know whether an artist has any idea of what they're making, like if they have like a kind of preconceived notion of what they're trying to achieve prior to starting to create something. I mean, who knows? But does it have an effect when you're done with it? I guess that's kind of
Mm,
what we're hoping for, right?
right, right. Yeah. Well, okay, so I I will say about this instrumental music that we've made. Um, if a songwriter, if a good songwriter liked this music and said, I want to write lyrics to this and go in the studio and record them over this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I'd be down to hear what that's like. Absolutely.
Okay,
Do it.
interesting.
You know what I mean?
So it's not like it's not sacred to you. It's not like it has to be instrumental as
No,
far
no,
as
no, no.
being making art.
No, yeah, it's not sacred in that way. I mean, speaking for myself, I
Sure.
um oh no. No. I mean, like, okay, so Richard Butler of the Psychedelic Furs
Mm-hmm.
is one of my favorite. He has one of my favorite voices in modern music. I kind of feel like they were the real soundtrack to the '80s. If I were to meet Richard Butler and give him a Royal Arctic Institute record, my one of my dearest wishes is that he would take a liking to it. Say, "Ooh, I can do something with this."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be a great honor.
Yeah, it would. Oh yeah. I
And,
don't know
and
what.
and just take it. Just take whatever he gives you. Like, okay, yep, that sounds great.
Yep, we're good. Let's put it out. You know. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. I get that. That's cool. All right. Well, I thank you for humoring me and
Oh
my
my
weird
God.
questions.
This has been so much fun. I've so thoroughly enjoyed doing this with you tonight. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Anytime. I'm sorry that we didn't like kind of tackle too much about this record specifically because it was just so hard and there was like very little
Lots to
information out
tackle.
there about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then plus the record's fucking it's an hour long plus.
Oh yeah. There's so much to tackle in it. So
I
yeah.
bet. Yeah. So we're just gonna kind of do that little bit of it and hope that maybe whoever listens to this takes some liking to it, takes some shine to it, and maybe goes explore it. But more importantly, they will explore the Royal Arctic Institute and what you're doing currently.
I hope so. Yeah. And I'm not sure when this is coming out, but our record release show is tomorrow night in New York City.
I'm not going to have that kind of turnaround, but
Okay. That's
but
okay.
the beauty of music today is that it's available to stream everywhere. So we'll direct people to that, and then obviously if you're putting it out on vinyl, closer to the end of the year, hopefully people will find it then and purchase a physical copy.
Let's hope so. Okay.
Sounds great.
I thank you so much.
Thank
And
you. All right, man. Yeah, good luck to you with the Beast in Kingston. And,
yeah, man, I'm so looking forward to it.
I'm sure it's going to be a blast. And hopefully we can see you back here again sometime soon.
I would love that.
All right.
All right.
Next time I'll say hi, John.
All right. Take care.
All right, you too.